Just like you said, you mentioned Pastor Antoine Rutaisili's book and how he said that he survived, so he can tell. I think all of us survivors know that we were given a second chance to life, and to write a book and to testify. For me, is to give glory to God, and in fact, I said this is his story, so he can be given glory when people in the world hear me speak and give these testimonies, so they can know that if he can take me from that ditch, a little girl who's already buried, and taken me out and be able to speak today, and I have made it to being a mother, and also be able to write this story down and put it in a way that people can have access to reading his miracles. And I think that voice that I heard, for a long time, I couldn't say that it was God who spoke to me, but the voice that I heard was, you will suffer, but you will live. It didn't come once. It came several times. You will suffer, but you will live. And I'm thinking, how am I? And this voice is in my head over and over. This is right after I'm dug out by Rambel, whom we didn't get to talk about. Rambel had from a woman who heard my voice under the ground, been buried more than 10 hours, completely buried under the ground with dead bodies. And I kept praying and crying. And she heard my voice and went and called Rambel, who came and dug me out. As soon as Rambel took me out and put me on the next ditch, after I heard the group that just killed my father, then I started hearing this voice, you suffer, but you're not going to die. And I'm thinking, how am I going to suffer and not die? My dad just got killed. The genocide is still going on. I don't know how long it's going. You will suffer, but you will not die. And I'm taken to this woman. She takes me in her house and puts me under the dry beans. This is where she hid me. The voice comes back again. You will suffer, but you will not die. The woman kicks me out later in the night. I'm all by myself now. I had a cut on my foot. I had a swollen head. I can't walk. I had all those injuries. And she tells me, you have to go. I don't want to go die with my children. So I left her home in the middle of the night to go stay outside. And then the voice comes again. You will suffer, but you're not going to die. But then I just don't get it. Because in my head, at one point, I'm just really convinced I'm going to die. There's no way. Now I'm actually the only one. Everybody's dead. I'm definitely going to die. If I don't die from these people killing me, I'm going to die of injuries that are not treated. But the following day, the guy who came to come and take me to his house and hide me, again at his house, you will suffer, but you will not die. But no answer was given to me when I asked how. How am I going to suffer and not die? The genocide is still going on. It wasn't until later that I understood that this was actually that God was saving my life. And maybe my brain was also was at work, like protecting me. But this is when, then after I gave my life to Christ, I understood God protected me. I'm not saying that God didn't protect other people that were killed in the genocide, but obviously I'm here to be testifying and also keeping the legacy of my people, or of all the Tutsis, and testifying and telling the story. Because if it wasn't for God, what they had planned was to wipe all of us out. That there will never be a Tutsi that will ever tell the story. That was the plan of the genocide. That was the plan that was in place. But here we are. You can't wipe out a people that God has created. And so we're able to stay and tell the story, and don't confuse it with, well, are you saying that those other people were not protected by God? That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that the plan that they had failed, because God is God. And so what I can say to people, and the students that that I brought, the group that I brought, I took them right into that ditch, and I stood right where I was laying, and I said, you guys have a good life. I know you complain a lot. A lot of people in the West complain about little things that you cannot actually believe. And somebody to complain that they don't have an iPhone 15 when you were in the ditch, almost dead. And I said, if God can take a little girl like me that was in this ditch and still give me life, I believe that anything, I'm not talking about iPhone 15, by the way, that's first world problems. But I'm talking about there's not a problem, there is not the farthest that God cannot bring anyone from. And there's not a big problem that God cannot resolve. There's nothing that God can't do to those who believe. You just need to have your eyes on him and believe that he can do it. And if he doesn't do it, then the miracle is you. Because sometimes I think in church we preach and tell people, God is going to give you this, God is going to give you a house, God is going to give you a good wife, God is going to give you children, God is going to give you a marriage. And then when your marriage fails, well, God is not existent, or when my children don't follow the Lord, or when I don't have a husband, or when I don't get a wife, or when I don't have money, or I have failed in school, then we start doubting the sovereignty of God. But God is not God because of what he gives. God is God because he is God. He is not God for what he gives us, and we can't measure God because you have a nice suit. We can't measure God because if it's that, then there's people then have experienced God more than we have, and they don't even know who God is. But so we can't measure God by what we see. We measure God for who he is and for what he has done in our hearts and for who he is as a father, not for what he gives. Because the minute you measure God for what he gives you, then the minute you don't have what's enough, then you're going to doubt that there is no God. But I have to grow enough to understand that God is God in good times and bad times, in tribulations and in joys, in when I have seen my promises and when they have taken too long to come in place. I don't measure God for what you see. So when I was standing in that ditch, I told those young men, I said, now you know that God is real for him taking a little girl from this faraway village, from this ditch, and bring someone like Lambert to dig me out and then give me life to be able to tell you the story from one end to another end.